Have you ever wondered what happens after we shuffle off this mortal coil? It's a question that's kept humans up at night since, well, forever. But for Catholics, the answer to that question has been changing in some pretty interesting ways over the centuries. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat about how the Catholic Church has been rethinking hell. Picture yourself in a dimly lit medieval church. The air is thick with incense, and the priest is in full fire and brimstone mode. He's painting a picture of hell that would make even the bravest soul quake in their boots. We're talking eternal flames, unending torment, the works. This wasn't just some scare tactic. For centuries, this was the official party line of the Catholic Church. Take St. Augustine, for example. This guy wasn't just any old theologian. He was a heavyweight in the world of Christian thought. And he had some pretty wild ideas about hell. He actually thought that damned souls would be like salamanders. Now, I know what you're thinking. Salamanders? Those cute little lizards? Yep, those salamanders. See, back then, people thought these critters could live in fire without getting burned. So Augustine figured, hey, if a salamander can do it, why not a damned soul? But wait, it gets better. In the 11th century, a fellow named Saint Anselm of Canterbury wrote a real page-turner called Meditations to Arouse Fear. Catchy title, right? His big idea was that since God is infinite, offending him deserves an infinite punishment. It's like getting detention for eternity because you sassed the principle. Harsh? Much? Even the brainy St. Thomas Aquinas got in on the act. He had this idea that the saved souls in heaven would actually enjoy their bliss more by watching the suffering of the damned. Talk about awkward family reunions in the afterlife. Can you imagine? Hey, Uncle Bob! Having fun down there in the lake of fire? Pass the celestial popcorn, will you? For a long time, the church was pretty pessimistic about how many people would make it to the good place. There was this saying in Latin, because everything sounds fancier in Latin: salvandorum paucitas, damnandorum multitudo. In plain English, that means few saved, many damned. Not exactly a glass-half-full kind of outlook, is it? It's like they thought heaven had a really strict bouncer, and hell was throwing a massive, never-ending party, albeit a pretty unpleasant one. Now, it wasn't just the big-name theologians who were painting this grim picture. The church has a whole cast of mystics and visionaries who claim to have seen hell firsthand. And let me tell you, their Yelp reviews were not 5-star. Take Street Veronica Giuliani, for example. She basically said, "The number of the damned." Oh, honey, you can't even count that high. It's like she thought hell was the hottest nightclub in the afterlife, and everyone was on the guest list. And then there's Sister Lucia, one of the famous Fatima visionaries. She looked at how people were behaving and thought, yeah, only a small part of humanity is going to make the cut. Talk about being a tough grader. But the award for the most vivid hell tourist goes to Sister Faustina Kowalska. She wrote in her diary that God sent her on a field trip to the underworld so she could report back. Her description? Let's just say it makes your worst nightmare look like a day at the beach. She talked about devils full of hatred and a place of great torture. Not exactly somewhere you'd want to spend eternity or even a long weekend. But here's where things get interesting. In recent decades, the Catholic Church has started to shift gears. It's like they've gone from being the stern parent, always threatening punishment, to the cool aunt who focuses on the positive. Don't get me wrong. The church still believes hell is real, but they've kind of rebranded it. In 1999, Pope John Paul II, the Polish Pope who helped bring down communism, said something pretty revolutionary. He described hell not as a place, but as a state. It's like he was saying, hey, hell isn't this underground torture chamber. It's more like being in a really, really bad mood. Forever. The church started putting more emphasis on God's love rather than his wrath. It's like they realized that always talking about punishment wasn't the best way to win friends and influence people. Imagine if your parents only ever talked about grounding you and never mentioned how much they loved you. You'd probably start looking for new parents. This shift opened up some pretty wild discussions among Catholic thinkers. Some theologians, like Hans von Balthasar, try saying that name 5 times fast, started proposing that maybe, just maybe, everyone might end up saved in the end. It's like they were saying, what if God's love is so powerful that it eventually wins everyone over? It's a bit like thinking of God as the ultimate salesperson. He just won't take no for an answer. Even Pope Francis, the current pope, has gotten in on this hopeful trend. He once said, "I like to think of hell as empty. I hope it is." Can you imagine a medieval pope saying something like that? They'd probably have thought he was possessed. It's like the church has gone from abandon all hope, ye who enter here, to, hey, maybe there's hope for everyone after all. So, where does the Catholic Church stand on hell today? Well, it's kind of like they're trying to walk a tightrope. On one side, they're still saying, yes, hell is real and it's a possibility. But on the other side, they're also saying, but we hope nobody's actually there. It's a bit like parents who keep their kids' room ready, even after they've moved out, just in case they need to come back. The official teaching found in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, think of it as the Church's official rulebook, defines hell as a state of definitive self-exclusion from communion with God and the blessed. It's like they're saying, hell is what happens when you permanently ghost God. Can you imagine? God keeps texting me, but I'm just not responding. Eternal read receipts, baby. The church these days is all about praying for everyone's salvation. It's like they're the ultimate optimists, hoping that somehow, some way, everyone might make it to the good place in the end. It's a bit like a teacher, hoping all their students will pass, even the ones who never do their homework. Of course, not everyone in the church is on board with this more hopeful view. Some folks argue that we need to keep talking about hell as a real and populated place. They worry that if we don't, people might not take their actions seriously enough. It's like they're saying, if there's no threat of punishment, what's to stop people from being jerks? It's the old spare the rod, spoil the child argument, but on a cosmic scale. On the flip side, others in the church are all about emphasizing God's mercy. They're like, come on, if God is all loving, surely he'll find a way to save everyone in the end, right? It's like they're picturing God as this super persistent parent who just won't give up on their kids, no matter how much of a mess they make. The cool thing is, the church allows for a range of views on this. As long as you believe hell is a possibility, even if you hope it's an empty possibility, you're still in line with church teaching. It's like they're running a big tent revival, and everyone's invited, even the folks who disagree about the details. Now, you might be thinking, why should I care about all this? I'm not planning on going to hell anyway. But here's the thing, how a religion views the afterlife can have a big impact on how people live their lives here and now. Think about it. If you believe most people are going to end up in eternal torment, that might make you pretty anxious or even judgmental. You'd be walking around thinking, is that guy going to hell? Am I going to hell? Is my dog going to hell? Spoiler alert, all dogs go to heaven. It's a fact. Look it up. But if you believe in a God who's working overtime to save everyone, that might make you more hopeful and loving towards others. You'd be like, hey, we're all in this together. God's got our backs. Maybe I should be nicer to my neighbor, even if their dog keeps pooping on my lawn. This shift in the church's thinking about hell reflects a broader trend towards emphasizing God's mercy and love. It's like the church is saying, hey, we know life can be tough, but don't worry, God's got your back. It's a bit like going from having a really strict boss to having a boss who's more like a mentor. Sure, there are still rules, but the focus is more on helping you grow than on punishing you when you mess up. So, there you have it. The Catholic Church's views on hell have come a long way from the days of fire and brimstone preaching. from a literal underground torture chamber to a state of being, from most people are doomed to we hope everyone makes it. It's been quite a journey. It's like hell has gone from being this terrifying haunted house to more of a you really don't want to go there, but if you do, it's kind of your own fault situation. Who knows where this theological journey will end up? Maybe in another few hundred years, Catholics will have a completely different understanding of the afterlife. Or maybe they'll swing back to a more traditional view. That's the thing about religious thought. It's always evolving, always in conversation with the culture around it. It's like fashion. What's in today might be out tomorrow, but it might come back in style a century from now. One thing's for sure. The next time someone tells you to go to hell, you can give them a little history lesson on how the meaning of that phrase has changed over the centuries. Now, that's what I call a conversation starter. You could be like, well, actually, according to current Catholic thought, hell might just be a state of being rather than a place. So technically, I'm already there if I've definitively excluded myself from communion with God. But thanks for the suggestion. Remember, whether you're Catholic, another religion, or not religious at all, these big questions about what happens after we die are something we all think about. And isn't it fascinating to see how our ideas about it change over time? It just goes to show that even when we're talking about eternal things, our understanding is always changing. It's like trying to hit a moving target, but the target is invisible, and also, maybe it doesn't exist. Fun times. So, next time you're pondering the big questions of life, death, and what comes after, remember this little tour through Catholic history. And hey, maybe it'll inspire you to be a little kinder to others, just in case there is an afterlife, and just in case someone is keeping score. After all, it can't hurt to hedge your bets, right? In the end, whether you believe in hell, heaven, reincarnation, or nothing at all, the way we treat each other here and now is what really matters. So let's all try to make this world a little less hellish and a little more heavenly. Who knows? Maybe that's the whole point of this crazy ride we call life.